All of a sudden, we just hear a bunch of stuff flying overhead. They just launched a whole bunch of Tomahawks. They found Saddam or his sons at a coffee shop. All of a sudden, we hear something come back the other direction. And it just landed outside of Camp Commando, which is where my wife was stationed at. I was just like, hey, can I make a phone call? It's like, make it to Saddam's palace. Saddam's photo is hanging. Of course, there's alcohol. I found all these shot glasses. We just got done taking over an entire palace. Why can't I take a couple freaking glasses? I broke a whole bunch of them. When people come to my house, I'd throw those glasses out and remind them that if they get freaking herpes from Saddam Hussein, it's not my fault. We're in downtown Baghdad. One of the homies pokes his head out, screams Americans. He ended up getting lit up. They were like, hey, we got to get him back. We're like, how the fuck are we going to do that? One of the guys was just like, you do it just like you do a deer. Strap him to the hood. So we freaking tie this dude to the freaking hood. And when we come back into friendly lines into this area, the grunts at the gate were just like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Yeah, my name is Rob Blanton. I was in the United States Marine Corps. I served from 1993 to 2014, and I was a Recon Marine.
Awesome. What rank did you get out?
I got out as a Master Sergeant. I'm from the Bay Area, a little place called Santa Rosa. My upbringing was pretty typical. My parents were both really young when I was born, and they were still kind of into that party scene. And unfortunately, my parents split when I was pretty young, and a lot of it revolved around drug use. And basically the story is my father was trying to quit. My mom wasn't ready, and that kind of drove a wedge in between them. And so they split. Fortunately, I got to spend a lot of time with both sets of my grandparents, and just got to interact with with them, and my maternal grandparents were both teenagers during the Great Depression. And as soon as my grandfather during the Great Depression got a job with the Civilian Conservation Corps. So, they were building roads and bridges and stuff like that. And I always remember him saying that he was making $25 a month with the CCCs, and he was required to send 20 of that home. So he lived off of, $5 a month. And then when World War II kicked off, he joined the Army. He became a pilot, and he was flying B-25s. And my maternal grandmother, was a secretary. And she had a really cool job also where they were from Wisconsin, and she would drive an older rich couple from Wisconsin to Florida every fall. And then, my grandmother would drive back and work her normal job. And then in the springtime, she would drive back to Florida, pick up this older couple and bring them back to Wisconsin. So, and then on my paternal grandparents' side, they were a little bit younger. So, they missed the Great Depression. My grandfather served during the Korean War as a cook. And my grandma Blanton, was just a homemaker. But you want to talk about two differences. Grandma and Grandpa Blanton were Democrats. Grandma and Grandpa Gens were Republicans. And I got to hear and see, and it was actually really cool to kind of get both of those influences that helped kind of shape, how I feel about life and everything. And, but also my grandparents that grew up during the Depression, you put that food on your plate, you're eating it no matter what. And Grandma and Grandpa Blanton were like, I always remember, looking at my grandma and be like, Grandma, I'm full. She's like, well, honey, if you're full, you don't have to eat it. And I'm like, but yeah, can I still get dessert? She's like, of course you can still get dessert. I'm like, hell yeah, I still get dessert. I love it here. So, and then in my teen years, my mom was basically had massive depression, all drug induced. And it was super tough living with that. So it kind of drove me away from her, and I spent even more time with friends, more time at my grandparents and stuff like that. But and then she ended up getting pregnant when I was like 17 years old by who knows who, and she had my little brother, and then she made a big turnaround through that until my little brother was like 2 years old, and then I get a call from my grandfather, and I can tell he's upset, and I was just like, he couldn't talk, and I was like, Grandpa, did Grandma die? And he's like, no, your mom. And so that was, my mom ended up overdosing, and super tough because my little brother was 2 years old at the time. I have a son that's a year old, and basically my mom put my little brother to sleep that night. She was a tweaker, so she did a line of speed or whatever, and OD'd on it, died some point that night. And then my little brother woke up the next morning, his mom's gone, and he basically spent all day with her until my grandfather called to see if they were going to come up for dinner. And my little brother didn't really talk, and my grandfather knew something was wrong and went to the house and found his daughter. And then 3 days later, his wife of 56 years passed away. So my grandfather lost his oldest daughter and his wife within 3 days of each other. I've got a picture of basically my 2.5-year-old brother sitting in his lap with my 1.5-year-old son sitting in his lap, and the two of them are singing, and you can just tell by the expression on their faces that they're just having a great time. And my grandfather's smiling, he's laughing, right? And this is like days after losing his daughter and his wife. And the smile on his face does not hide the pain in his eyes. I mean, I look at that photo and I love it, but I also hate it. What inspired me to join the military had nothing to do with, like, my dad. Like I said, my dad was only 19. I was born in 74, December of 74, right? So Vietnam War is basically done. Father didn't get drafted, didn't join. He, super young. And both sets of my grandparents served. But basically what happened is I'm a junior in high school, and I'm sitting in an 8th grade math class because Rob ain't very smart. And one of my best homies is not there. And I'm the type of guy, I'm like, bro, if you're cutting class, we're cutting class. Just let a brother know, I'm with you, right? So I'm sitting there, and eventually he comes walking in, and I'm like, hey dude, what's up? Where were you at? He's like, I just joined the Marine Corps. And at this time, I had no idea what a Marine was. I've seen the freaking commercials, right? But I just don't know. As far as I was concerned, a Marine was just another name for an Army guy, right? So, being the brother that he was, of course, he gives our name and phone number to the recruiter. And so the recruiter starts hitting me up. And there was 5 of us total. And one by one, everyone starts to join the Marines. And me and my boy Keith were kind of like the holdouts, like, I'm not really sure and whatnot. And then finally, we both end up joining. So now there's 5 of us going to boot camp on the buddy program. And now I think we're seniors, and 2 of the guys had started to kind of like do their own thing. They were starting to become like really good friends, kind of pulling away from what we were doing, and they eventually drop out of high school. And one day the recruiter hits them up and was like, hey, I've got the opportunity to send 2 non-high school graduates to boot camp. The deal is you have to leave tomorrow, take it or leave it. So these 2 cats end up going down, and they go through boot camp, they graduate, they're on their 10 days boot leave, and they go UA. Recruiter again finds them, and if I remember correctly, the recruiter finds them, drives them from the Bay Area to Camp Pendleton, drops them off at, SOI area, MCT. And because these 2 are deserters, because these 2 are UA, they immediately get put on like guard duty or whatever the case was. So now, apparently these 2 are like, man, this sucks. They finish their guard, go back to wherever they were staying at, folded up all their stuff nice and neat, and walked to Santa Onofre, walked up to San Clemente, called a girl that we used to hang out with. She drove down from the Bay, picked their asses up, took them back up to, our hometown, and they became deserters after that. So now there's 3 of us, right? The original guy that joined, and myself and our buddy Keith. We're looking like a month prior to leaving for boot camp. Keith breaks his leg playing football. So now it's just the OG, Joe, and myself. Joe and I go down to MEPS, and he loves this story. Joe and I go to MEPS, and we're doing our final physical. We're flying to San Diego that day, where we're going to be standing on the yellow footprints that night. As we're going through the final physical, he and I get separated, and now I'm standing in line to go in and do my moment of truth right before you swear in. And there's this Army guy in uniform walking up and down. He's like, who here is on the buddy program? There's, a handful of us raise our hands. He's like, oh, you guys are going to know the meaning you guys are going to know that buddy is only half the word, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, buddy's only half the word. What's he talking about, right? He's like, yeah, you guys are going to come walking out of here swearing in, and there's going to be one of your homies sitting on the bench of woe, and he ain't going to go to boot camp with you, right? I'm like, whatever. Go through my moment of truth and then swear in, come walking out of the swearing in room, and there's my homie Joe sitting on the bench of woe. The very first dude. I am the proverbial, if your friend jumps off a bridge, will you? I joined the fucking Marine Corps because my friends joined. And I walk up to him and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, hey man, last week I was over at so-and-so's house. I got high. They're sending me back to do another drug waiver. I'm not shipping for another 2 weeks. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So here I am. That night I'm standing on the yellow footprints and I am like overwhelmed. And then of course, you're awake for those first 48 hours, just doing your whole in-processing thing. And I remember that night, when after that first 48 hours and you get your first opportunity to rack out, I remember laying there and, they give that final adjust, right? And lights are out and all of a sudden I can hear dudes all around me crying, right? And in my mind, I'm like, don't you dare fucking cry. I was just like, dude, it's so overwhelming. And then, of course, we finally get picked up by a platoon, and all 4 of my drill instructors are sergeants. And that's never the platoon you want to be in, right? And those guys were, 2 of them were grunts. One was an MP, and the other one was a aircraft guy. So I'm sitting in front of Staff Sergeant Stern, my recruiter, and he's got all the tags out, and he's just like, pick what's really important to you, right? And I'm like, I can't even read half these tags. I don't. So he's like, what are your passions? And I was like, well, I really like to drive. Like, my dad was a drag racer. I was like 4 years old the first time he put me in he built himself a V8 Vega, and that thing ran 11s at our home track, which was a place called Sears Point, Sonoma County Raceway now, I believe is what it's called. And he's like, so he's telling me about Motor T, he's telling me about tanks, he's telling me about LAVs and tracks and just all this stuff, right? So I go down and take the ASVAB, and I come back, and we're sitting down, and he's like, hey, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news is I can make you a Marine. The bad news is, with your test scores, all these jobs we were talking about, you don't qualify for any of them, and you can only go in open contract. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't even know what that means. So sure, I sign up. Now I'm, 5 of us are on the buddy program. I'm cool. And so I think that was probably another reason why the recruiter was just like, man, I'm just kind of screwing this kid over left and right, or I screwed myself over, in reality. But so he kind of took me under his wing. And at some point he was like, listen, when you go to boot camp, just volunteer for everything. Just do it, right? So I'm doing it. I'm volunteering for everything. I rotated through I can march, but when it was like, I'm the guide. Count guide at the chow hole, I can't do it. I got freaking numbers dyslexia, right? I'm thinking about numbers, they're flying all over the place. I can't do it. So I'm getting fired as the guide. I'm made a squad leader, get fired as squad leader, and I just keep rotating through all these positions and all that stuff. And the heavy, Sergeant Jackson, he was the air wing guy, hated me, or he loved me so much that he would just thrash me at every freaking opportunity that he got. And, so make it through boot camp, go home on recruiter's assistance, or go home for my 10 days boot leave. Recruiter hooks me up. I got 30 days of recruiter's assistance. And right before I leave to go back down to Pendleton, the recruiter looks at me and he was just like, hey man, probably what's going to happen with you being an open contract is they're going to pull you into a room and they're going to offer you a job. I don't care what it is, you should take it. I'm like, all right, cool. So sure shit, we, get pulled into a Quonset hut down in the School of Infantry area. And there was like a sergeant major, and the sergeant major, I couldn't understand a word he was saying, right? But he kept holding up this piece of paper. He kept pointing to it. And basically he was like, if you want a guaranteed MOS, come sign this right now, right? So I get up, run up there, sign it. Again, zero idea what I just signed up for, and go sit back down, and it ended up being 03. So I got myself an 03 contract. But again, because of all my GT score, my line scores and all this stuff, I'm an 0311. I don't qualify for anything else. So while I was in the recruiting office, there was a guy, Gunny Francis, big black dude, and he was one of the recruiters. And there was also a recon guy in there named Staff Sergeant Boyd. And I didn't really have a lot of interaction with him, but you would look at him, and because he had dual cool, you're like, okay, this guy's a little bit different. I got to know what this is about. And so at some point I'm talking to Staff Sergeant Sturm, my recruiter, and I was like, hey, why does Staff Sergeant Boyd have that stuff on his chest? And he's like, oh, he's Force Recon. He came over here from the East Coast and so on and so forth. Except I thought he said Forest Recon, like trees and shit. So, I remember walking around the hometown like, oh yeah, I signed up. Yeah, I think I'm going to be Forest Recon. I'm like, now I look back on it, I was just like, it wasn't, I was watching a movie on TV, and I don't remember anything about the movie except I think it was Vietnam based. Ralph Macchio was in it from The Karate Kid, and it showed him driving someplace, and it said Force Recon Compound or something like that. And I was like, oh, Force Recon. So I end up volunteering, and one thing I could do is I could swim. I was always a good swimmer. But when I went through boot camp, I wasn't given the opportunity to go past, at the time, I think third class was the lowest swim qual there was in the early 90s, right? They brought fourth class on later on, but I think third class was the lowest you could do, that was attainable. And I remember I did the third class swim qual, no problem. They pulled me out and they put me in a line, and that was it. I was done. I didn't get an opportunity to go further. So now when I'm in SOI, going through the School of Infantry to become an O3, there was a handful of guys in there that were taking the battalion recon in doc. And I was just like, well, hey, I don't know what battalion is, but it's recon. I want to try out too, but I didn't have the swim qual, so they wouldn't let me. So past SOI, and the end up going to my first duty station after I graduated School of Infantry was 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines. So literally I jumped on a bus, drove the 3 miles up the road to Camp Horno, and hop off the bus, grab my bag. There's a sergeant there, greets us, and he literally just gets us in a big formation, walks us up to this barracks, and pull up to a door, and he's like, you two inside, this is your new barracks room, right? So I'm kind of in the back, and he just keeps going down, and we're getting down to the end of it, right? And it's starting to get dark outside, and I'm just like tired, ready to, get situated and whatnot. And he opens up this door and he points at me and he's like, inside. I go walking in, right? And it was like literally the record freaking skips on the jukebox, right? 3 cats are inside that room looking back at me. 2 black dudes and a Dominican. And I'm the whitest freaking redneck that they'd ever freaking seen, right? So, immediately they put me in a top rack. We're all the same rank, but they were all from the East Coast, and they were all them Geiger Tigers, and they had gotten there like 3 or 4 days, so they were already settled in and whatnot. And there was a field day, and at some point I was just like, hey, you guys mind if I play some music? And they're like, oh, geez, here we go. This dude's probably going to play some freaking Elvis Presley or something like that. And, I'm from the Bay Area. Of rap and hip hop is what I listen to. I grew up listening to. And so I dropped in a little freaking Mr. Grimm Indo Smoke, and all of a sudden they were like, oh shit, freaking. So then we all got along really good. And two of them, I still stay in contact. One of them ended up getting kicked out for basically being a malingerer. And then to this day, I'm still really good friends with social media homies with them. I didn't have to go through any initiations when I first got to 3-1. But what was weird about the whole situation was, we had a couple corporals, but the majority, everybody was like senior lance corporals. And in the 90s, it wasn't uncommon to do 4 years and get out as a lance corporal. That was pretty normal. And then I remember I was meritorious PFC out of boot camp, thanks to my recruiter, and threw me a couple contracts on the side. And so I got promoted to Lance Corporal, at your 9-month mark or whatever that was, right? And they came to us and they're like, hey, Lance Corporals, there's a meritorious corporal board. Who wants to do it? And I still have that kind of like that volunteer for everything mentality. So I'm like, I'll do it, right? Well, as soon as I volunteer, all the senior lance corporals is like, that shit's all rigged and freaking, they already pick who they want and so on and so forth, right? I fucking won it. I was a lance corporal for 1 month. I got meritoriously promoted to corporal with 10 months time in service, right? And that was horrible. Freaking, I was knowledge smart. I could regurgitate information, but I had zero experience, no leadership, no nothing, right? It was, so, all the senior lance corporals hated my guts. All the corporals would constantly just like belittle me and so on and so forth. But it also kind of helped me grow up super fast, right? So like the only initiation was I earned my blood stripes, and I earned my blood stripes. It seemed like every freaking corporal that was in that battalion came down to my room and freaking made me earn those freaking blood stripes. In the Marine Corps, when you pick up corporal or when you become a non-commissioned officer, an NCO, when you wear your blue trousers in your blues or your deltas or whatever the Charlie short sleeve uniform is. When you become an NCO, you get to wear the red stripes that go down the trousers, and those are referred to as blood stripes. And when you pick up corporal, there's an initiation process. And basically what happens is everybody, all the corporals, come into an area, and you basically walk a gauntlet, and everyone just freaking knees you in your thighs. They basically Charlie horse you or dead leg you, and you suck it up. You just make it happen. And probably after the good third one, and of course there's a couple guys that have been in the Marines for 4 or 5 years and just got promoted to corporal, which was really normal at that time. And here I am, I haven't even been in a year yet, and these dudes freaking made me earn it. So to say the least, the next day trying to walk was pretty tough. So I check into 3-1, and I get my room assignment. The next day I go to that sergeant that met us at the bus, and I was like, hey, Sergeant, I want to put in a PAR, a personnel action request. I want to put in a chit to go talk to the first sergeant. And he's like, why? And I was like, well, I'm in Kilo Company, which is the Hilo company. I want to go to India Company, which is the boat company. And he's like, whatever boot, I don't care, right? So I get called into the first sergeant. I go walking into the first sergeant. The first sergeant is a Recon Marine. K.A. Westrop was his name. And First Sergeant Westrop is just like, so PFC, what's up? And I was just like, First Sergeant, I want to go to India Company because I want to be a Recon Marine. And I think, being in boats will help me with that. And he's like, well, Marine, as you can tell, I'm a Recon Marine, and basically give me a deployment and I will help you get into Recon. But you got to earn it. Roger that, First Sergeant. And then he looks at me, he's like, why do you want to be Recon? And I was like, because I want to go to jump and dive school, right? He thrashed the fuck out of me after that. And the whole time, like, I'm doing freaking 8 counts and pushing and all this stuff. He's walking around me. He's like, jump and dive school is just a means of insertion. Recon's real mission is X, Y, and Z. Say it. And I'm like, oh my God. So I end up doing the deployment. And one of the highlights of the deployment is while I was in boot camp in 93, Black Hawk Down had happened. And I remember the drill instructors basically having the newspaper and hanging it up. And it was basically a picture of the Somalis pulling the pilots' bodies through the streets. And the drill instructors were kind of using that as, fuel for the, like, hey, Marines, you guys are we are the baddest motherfuckers to walk the planet. And, this is what we do. So now I'm in 3-1 and we're overseas and we get the tasker to go into Somalia. And it was called Operation United Shield. And basically what was happening is they were sending the Marines in to allow the UN forces, which, if I remember correctly, were the Pakistanis. And the Pakistanis were literally just being bullet sponges out there because the rules of engagement were so strict. I don't even know if those guys were allowed to have ammo inserted in their weapon at the time. I can't remember, but we were basically going in there to hold the ground so those guys could pull back out. And our company was in the what's called the Newport facility, and we had there was a prison complex there that was still prisoners in it and whatnot. And the whole thing was pretty uneventful. I mean, we had a handful of guys shoot the clearing barrel more than anybody got to shoot it, any bad guys or anything like that. Get back off from this first deployment, and they immediately send me to corporal's course, right? I got to get PME complete. I show up to corporal's course, and in typical Rob Blanton fashion, I get kicked out day one. And I do the walk of shame back to my unit, go into my first sergeant, and he's literally like, what the fuck are you doing here? And I was like, hey, first sergeant, they're saying that I'm not PME complete. You had to do, at the time, it was called the 7000 series, MCI, Marine Corps Institute Distance Learning Program. It later became like the 8000 series or whatever. And I'm missing one. There's like 8 different MCIs, and I'm missing one. And out of all the ones that I'm missing, it's weapons. So he makes a phone call, and he's like, get your ass back to corporal's course right now, right? So I freaking jump in my car, haul back to corporal's course. He pulled some strings, and I come walking back in to corporal's course in Delmar, Camp Pendleton. And class is already in session, and it's like a big squad bay like classroom, you know, big open with regular desks. And I've got my freaking, you know, my get out of jail free card or my tardy slip or whatever. And I walk up to the same freaking staff sergeant instructor that kicked me out. And I hand it to him and he looks at it and he's like, go sit over there. Right. So I turn and I start walking and there are desks all over the place. And all of a sudden I look over and I see a female Marine sitting there and there's a desk open behind her. So I kind of stop and, you know, walk down the aisleway and sit down behind her. And that ended up putting us in the same squad at Corporal's course. Well, unfortunately, it also made that staff sergeant my squad advisor. And this dude already freaking hates me, right? And it just didn't get any better. So going through Corporal's course, like literally we're in it a day or two and I'm getting ready to leave. It's the day's done, getting ready to leave, head home. And this female Marine is on the side of the road. She's got a flat tire, right? So it was like 9 dudes. We were all leaving at the same time. And like all 9 of us like pulled our cars over. I'm trying to block dudes out, freaking jump out of my car. I got it half sitting still in the middle of the street and run up to her. And I'm like, I got this, right? And help her change her tire. And she was like, hey, I'm getting ready to go PT. Do you want to go? And I was like, well, shit, yeah, I got PT gear in my car. Why not? We go for a run. For 13 fucking miles, this chick freaking takes me on a run for, right? Still to this day, I have never ran further than 13 miles, right? And so, well, little did I know at the time that was kind of her hobby, is she ran marathons. This chick's only 5 feet freaking tall. Every step I'm taking, she's taking 15 steps. So maybe she ran a marathon while we did this 13-mile run. And yeah, so then we ended up doing the Camp Pendleton mud run, and we put together a 3 female, 3 male team. And it was like the very first year of the Camp Pendleton mud run. And so they didn't have a specific military mixed team. It was just mixed team, 3 and 3. So the 6 of us that all went to Corporal's course together, we ended up finishing 2nd place in this mixed team event. And we gave the trophy to Corporal's course. I have no idea if that trophy ever did anything. They're probably like, great, 2nd place, you know? But while I'm in Corporal's course, the first Force Recon in-doc is ran on the last Thursday of every month. And I get permission to miss a day of Corporal's course to go take this in-doc. And now this staff sergeant really fucking hates me because I'm missing a day. I go down, I take the in-doc, and you know, the in-doc starts, you take a PFT, you do what's called a level test. And the level test is, it's like a whole bunch of different exercises, push-ups, mountain climbers, 8 counts, flutter kicks, hello dollies, a whole bunch of different exercises. And it's max effort for 2 minutes. Then you get like a minute rest, and then you do the next one, max effort for 2 minutes. Then you run the O course twice. First time's for time, second time is it better not your second time better not be far off your first time. And then you go to the pool. You got a full camis, 500-meter swim in a time limit. You do a 25-meter underwater crossover. You tread water with a 10-pound brick for a minute. You had to jump in, retrieve a rubber rifle off the bottom of the pool deck, and then hold that rifle out of the water and swim it 25 meters to the side of the pool. And then they just crush you with water aerobics. And water aerobics is, you're on the side of the pool. They call out a swim stroke and you jump in as fast as you can to the other side. You get out, they call out another stroke, other side. And they always say, pays to be a winner, right? So they're hammering on you for minutes and minutes and minutes of this, just nonstop. And at some point, they say pay to be a winner, and if you're the first one out of the pool, you're done. And then they continue to thrash everybody else. And then after that, they run you back to the compound. You change into dry camis, and then they start your 8-mile. Basically, it's a ruck run with 50 pounds on your back. So everybody's got a cadre associated with them, and we start this ruck run, and at the very end of it, only 4 of us finish, right?
Out of how many?
Probably 25 of us, right? 2 officers. Again, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but I still remember all these guys that I did this in doc with. I remember all the force platoon guys that when I was in the grunts, they were on our ship. I remember all my drill instructors' names, right? But I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. So you finished the 8-mile ruck run, and 4 of us finished it. And they take you out into the surf zone and they thrash the shit out of you for a while. And then you do a lead run back, and you've already dropped your rucks. And we come running back into the first force compound, and they're like, hey, congratulations, you've finished the NDOC. Go to the bathroom, get your good camis on. You're going to have an interview after this, right? So I'm ecstatic, like, hell yeah. My cadre, a guy by the name of Butch Vasquez, he was a staff sergeant at the time, later became Sergeant Major Vasquez. And in Okinawa, he was in charge of the academies out there. And Butch is a real energetic type of guy. And he came up with this thing about the Marine Corps, and it had to do with the alphabet, right? So A stands for awesomeness because Marines are awesome and blah, blah, blah. And it goes through the entire alphabet, and it's just, when he does it, everyone just gets, super motivated and fired up about it. And anyways, Butch comes up to me and he's just like, hey, I just want to let you know that we had you ranked 2 of 4. Congratulations. I look forward to working with you. Right? I'm like, fuck yes. Right? Walk into that interview, sit down. They're like, hey, you didn't make it. Better luck next time. And I'm like, excuse me? They're like, you didn't make it. Come back next time. Right? And literally I'm like, but Staff Sergeant Vasquez said, they're like, get the fuck out of here, right? And I'm like, holy shit. I didn't make it. So now I got to drive back to friggin' Corporal's course. I'm literally fucking doing the walk of shame right now, right? I come walking into Corporal's course, and class is in session. my freaking squad advisor is the one teaching the class. And I turn the corner and this girl that I'm super freaking interested in looks at me, and she knew I was taking this thing. She looks at me and she gives me and I had to look at her and do and then to add fucking insult to injury, I walked up to the squad advisor and kind of handed him his thing. And he looked at me and he's like, I knew you weren't going to make it. And I was like, motherfucker, man. So, graduate, corporal's course, go back to my unit. And now I train my ass off for this force in doc, right? Now I got this girl that I'm super interested in, and you know, like right now, training is the last thing on my mind. And a couple months have gone by. We're talking like it's October, November timeframe. I think we graduated corporal's course in like July or whatever it was. And my first sergeant comes up to me and he was just like, hey, why don't you go down to Recon Battalion and, you know, go talk to the first sergeant there. I know him, and, you know, see how your in-doc did compared to what their requirements are, right? So I'm like, Roger that. I go down there and I talk to a first sergeant, and it's just not a good meeting. And the first sergeant is kind of being an asshole. And I'm just chalking it up to the fact that, you know, I'm just a grunt. I'm not a recon dude. Maybe my first sergeant, because my first sergeant made a phone call or something, you know. And I go back and I go to my first sergeant and he's like, how'd it go? And I was just like, hey, first sergeant, how well do you know the first sergeant that you sent me to? And he's just like, why? He's like, well, he kept calling you a wimp, right? My first sergeant K.A. Westrup, he's like, get the fuck out of my office right now. I fucking walk out and I walk around. He shared his office shared the common wall with the company office, right? So I walk in there and I can hear him on the phone. You motherfucker, I swear to God, I'm going to come down there and beat your ass like I used to fucking behind the barracks. Don't you ever fucking talk shit about me again. So like a day later, I wouldn't dare go like, hey, First Sergeant, is everything good? Like a day later, I see him and he's just like, hey, I don't think you going to battalion. It was actually company at the time. He's like, I don't think you going to recon company is really in your best interest. So I signed you up for the next force in doc. I hope you're ready, right? And I'm like, fuck, I mean, I haven't really been training for this thing. Or I was like, Roger that. And I'm like, fuck, I'm not ready. You know, I've been hanging out with this chick this whole time, you know. And I show up. And it always starts with the very first thing they do is they write a number on your hand and they write a number on your thigh, and you're now that number, right? I fucking crushed that in doc and I got accepted. So taking that second in doc, and I knew I did good, but I was still super nervous because I thought I did better the first one and I didn't make it. So going into that interview, I'm like obviously super nervous because, you know, I don't know if I can handle rejection twice in a row. And they sit me down and they're just like, hey, Corporal, we see you've been here before. You know, here's this and that. And congratulations, you made it. And, you know, such a good feeling. And I'm, you know, this is 1995. There's no cell phones. So I can't like call up my girl that like, hey, I, you know, made it. Now I want to go see that freaking staff sergeant at corporal's course and freaking rub it in his face too. And So I ended up freaking hauling ass back to my unit and going to my first sergeant and just being like, hey, I passed. And he's like, hey, congratulations. And, but don't drop your ruck yet because you still got basic recon school. I mean, there's still a ton of stuff that you have to go through. So, but basically here's your checkout sheet. So one of the funny things about spending 10 years at Force and going from corporal to staff sergeant is I eventually became the staff NCOIC, the staff non-commissioned officer in charge of indocs. So one of the very first times I got access to the filing cabinet, I pulled my file and I was like, what the hell was going on? Basically what happened was is I had failed a couple things, specifically with the level test. You need to meet a certain criteria, and I was just shy of some of those, right? But I also know from experience that it's also up to the staff and COIC and the OIC. They can have a little powwow and be like, this dude's good to go. We can take him, but they don't know me from no one. I did fail a couple things, and it basically just said on my file, let's see if he comes back. So, and I did. So checking out of the grunts and checking into First Force, was again such like an eye opener because you come walking into the compound. The compound is on Flores. It's completely gated in. It was super cool, right? And I go into the one shop and I'm like, hey, I'm checking in, and there was a sergeant there that was a platoon guy, an operator, and he was just like, "Hey, I'll show you around." So he's showing me around. He's like, "What platoon are you in?" I was like, "I have no idea." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And I remember I looked at him, and he's like, "Hey, let's break for chow, lunch, and come back here at we'll meet here at 1300." And I was like, "Okay, is the formation right here?" And he's like, "What formation?" And I was just like, 1300 formation. And he's like, "Did somebody say there's a formation?" And I'm like, "Bro, I just came from the grunts. We stood a morning formation, a before you go to chow formation, and after you get back from chow formation, and a 1630 friggin' secured for the day formation." He was like, "Bro, this is Force Recon. We do a Friday morning formation and that's it. We're entirely too busy to be, fucking around with all that other stuff." And I'm like, holy crap. Okay. So come back, and he takes me in to see the first sergeant, and I'm checking in with the first sergeant, and the first sergeant walks me down to the S3, and the platoon sergeant that I just floated with from the Force platoon, that I freaking Duke Nukem was his call sign. He's sitting there, and I'm like, holy crap! Like I know this guy, Tom Minder. Tom Minder ended up working for me. Once he retired, he became a contractor, and we would hire his company to provide us the civilian instructors for CQC and all that stuff. Anyways, First Sergeant Deaver goes, "Hey, is there any openings in that BRC class, basic recon course?" And Minder's looking at something. He's just like, "Yeah, there are." And he's like, "Okay, have Corporal Blanton link up with the other guy we're sending down." So I literally check in to Force Recon, and that night I'm down at basic recon course, right? And the brother that I ended up going down there with is Davey Lind. And Davey and I became recondos together. Davey's a combat wounded double leg amputee. He was with Recon Battalion when he was catastrophically wounded. And Davey and I are still brothers to this day. But that relationship started in driving to and from Coronado to go to basic recon course. So go through basic recon and physically, like obviously recon, you're doing a lot of finning, right? Fins on your feet, starts in the pool, then eventually you graduate into the bay, right? I can swim my ass off. I have no experience finning and I suck at it. They put you into fin teams and I'm like one of the very last fin teams. My fin buddy was a reservist captain and he was an older guy and he couldn't fucking fin it either, right? So when we're doing like run fin runs on Coronado, jumping in the pool and then jumping back out and finishing the run, I could finish towards the front of the group on the run, but then everybody would smoke me in the pool and then I'd jump out and I'd have to catch up everybody, not to finish dead last. And then when you start doing your open water fins, you always get the opportunity to go check the current and, you're either going to make the right call and fin with the current or you're going to make a bad call and fin against the current. And just consistently, me and my fin buddy were just sucking bad. So BRC is definitely not a gentleman's course. But they're also just not fucking with you to fuck with you, right? At the time, and things are completely different now. But at the time, all the cadre were staff sergeants. We actually had two Rangers, Army Rangers that were part of the cadre staff, Ranger Malloy and Ranger Posse. And that was kind of some inter-service stuff. Eventually, we brought SEALs over to be instructors and, just to kind of make the Recondo a more well-rounded, individual. And did I completely forget to mention that prior to me going to First Force, that girl that I met in Corporal's course in June, it's now December, right? 6 months later, and I marry her.
Before going to recon?
Before going to recon, I'd already passed the NDOC, right? The second NDOC, I'd already passed it. I think that was October or November that I did that. But like, this girl is mine, right? And it's been over 30 years now. And she ended up retiring as a chief warrant officer and two kids. Both our kids are, our oldest served in the Navy as a corpsman, and our youngest, who's 28, is currently a surface warfare officer in the Navy, and she's deployed on a destroyer right now. So yeah, I had a good thing there, and I wasn't going to let that go. So a few months later, now I checked into First Force, and I'm at BRC, and I'm sucking. It was, you got to write a patrol order, which is kind of the bread and butter of, of a not just a recon Marine, but anybody who's getting ready to put boots on the ground. You have to have this 5-paragraph patrol order. And I'm just not, I'm not the smartest guy. And it was really difficult for me. And if you fail it, that's it. You're pretty much done, right? So I get it done. I turn it in, and these 5 paragraph orders are hundreds, maybe 100 pages, right? And mine's like 60 freaking pages, and I'm looking at everybody else's like, oh my god, I'm going home. And a few days later, I get called into the bullpen where all the instructors hang out, and they're like, "Did you turn in your patrol order?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I turned it in." So they're like, "Hold on a minute." So I'm standing there. They call in Davy Lind, or they call in somebody, and they're like, "Did Corporal Blanton turn in his patrol order?" And I think it was Davy was like, "Yeah, he gave it to me. I put it in. I turned it over." Like, well, we can't find it, so you get an automatic 100%. So I was just like, I will fucking take that, right? So we're getting ready to go. So, back in the day, BRC, your first month or so was all on Coronado. And then your second month, you're on Camp Pendleton. And this is where you're doing all your land nav and your field work and all this stuff. Well, I'm having issues with my mom. I mean, while I was in boot camp, uh, I was was given special permission a couple times to go make phone calls because my mom got arrested, and I had my little brother, right? So I'm dealing with my mom now, and my mom's suicidal. I'm in BRC, and I'm I'm living with my wife. We have our son, and uh, I'm finding payphones, and I'm calling my mom because she's not doing well, and I'm worried about my little brother. And we go out to the field in basic recon course to do our land nav portion, and I'm sucking at land nav. I can't freaking it's not freaking clicking. I've got a million other things on my mind, dealing with my mom and my little brother, and I ended up failing land navigation, which at the time, thankfully, wasn't you weren't going to get a graduation certificate from basic recon course, but you were going to get a certificate of completion, right? So I fail land nav, and we go into the last month, and basically you do your final mission. It's this big amphibious mission, and so on and so forth. And I get a Red Cross. No, I'm sorry. I'm at home, and my grandfather calls me, and I can tell he's distraught. And the only thing I can think of is like, Grandpa, did Grandma pass away? Because my grandmother had Alzheimer's. She was bedridden. She'd been bedridden for over a year. And all he can really like eke out is like, no, your mom. And I remember I looked at my wife, and I was just like, my mom died. And so that started this whole, I called the staff NCOIC of basic recon course and said, hey, da da da. They're like, we need a Red Cross message. So had my grandfather send out the Red Cross message. I ended up going home, and that was tough. I had a 2.5-year-old brother, and I have a son, and it was just, it's super super tough, right? get back to Camp Pendleton, and I check back into First Force. And again, I'm not, I'm still kind of in limbo with the whole BRC thing because I never did the final test and I never did the final mission. I never did the final test. That was the hang up. The mission wasn't a problem. So I'm in 3rd platoon, and I go to Ranger D was his name, and I'm just like, hey man, I'm having problems. I brought my little brother back with me. I got to get him in school. He's developmentally delayed because my mom did a bunch of fucking drugs while she was pregnant with him, and just all this stuff. He's like, no problem, come with me. So he walks me down to the S1 and walks in there, and he was just like, hey, I got the new mail clerk, right? Well, come to find out, Ranger was being freaking tapped to be the mail clerk. And as soon as I came in, he was just like, hell yeah, right? So I ended up working in the mail room at First Force, and part of being the mailed person was you're also the CO's driver. And the commanding officer of Force Recon Company is a lieutenant colonel. And again, a company in the grunts is a captain, right? Again, just kind of show how senior Force Recon is. And so I got to drive for this guy every once in a while. And I'm having all these issues with, now I'm kind of having issues with my wife. And I'm having issues with my little brother. And it was getting really, really tough. Thankfully, my grandfather and my aunt stepped in and was just like, hey, I told your mom if anything ever happened to her that I would take care of you. And by extension of that, I will take care of your little brother. And so we went through that whole process, and my aunt and uncle ended up adopting my little brother. And so I, working in the mailroom, pretty easy. There's only a requirement of about literally an hour or two a day. But I got investigated more times working in the mailroom. I only worked there for like 4 months, and I got investigated twice because government charge cards that belonged to Force Recon kept coming up missing and being used out in town. So I keep getting called into NCIS, which at the time was at Camp Horno, my old stomping ground. And I got to sign these people's names, freaking right-handed, left-handed, backwards. That happened twice. And also while I'm down at the mailroom, I get to spend a lot of time at the pool on Flores. Well, the pool's ran by Force Recon guys, and it's usually guys that are in between platoons. They're already schooled out, or it's cats that are getting out and they're just holding a position at the pool. So I start hanging out there and, practicing my finning and everything. And I start to become really good friends with 2 guys there who are both new to the company. Sergeant Urquhart, Kenny Urquhart, and Phil Thome, right? We become really good friends. And I'm spending a lot of time down at the pool now. And to the point where I'm even answering, the phone, like, 41 area pool, freaking Sergeant Blanton speaking, how can I help you? And I answer the phone one day, and it's the S3 chief, a guy by the name of, I think he was a staff sergeant at the time, but Frog Morris. Frog was his call sign, and Frog stood for Force Recon Operations Guru. when you were back at the compound and you were walking down the hallway and you walked past the S3, you didn't dare fucking look in there because Frog's desk was right there. And if he caught you looking in there, he'd, be like, I fucking owe you money or something, right? He was, former drill instructor, and Frog's like, who's this? I was like, it's Blanton. He's like, hey, Blanton, are you and Urquhart ready to go to jump school? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm ready to go to jump school. He's like, come down here right now and fill out this paperwork. I freaking run down there with Urquhart. We freaking fill out this paperwork and everything's good to go, getting ready to go to jump school. And then the next day, a guy by the name of Staff Sergeant Tom, Willie T, who's going to be the platoon sergeant for the platoon that we're getting ready to go into, pulls me aside and he's like, hey, are you coming to 4th platoon? And I was like, I'll go anywhere somebody needs me. I'm like, I'm good. And he's like, okay, I'm just making sure because that jump school seat was not for you. It was for Thome. So I took that jump school seat. I went with Kenny, graduated from jump school. By virtue of me taking that jump school seat, I then went to dive school in Panama City with Kenny Urquhart. I then went to SEER school with out of North Island with Kenny Urquhart. And then we got tapped to go to free fall school in Yuma, again with Kenny Urquhart. We're lead sleds. We don't even have gold wings. And we're already going to free fall school, which when we got down to free fall school and there was a bunch of guys from 2nd Force that were down there, and they saw us from 1st Force with lead sleds going to this school that they've probably been waiting years to go to. That wasn't a good situation for us either. So lead sleds is your basic airborne jumper. It's the pewter colored, lead colored basic parachutist wings. And in the Marine Corps and the Navy, when you meet a certain requirement of very specific jumps, you then get gold parachutist wings, right? But if you never meet those requirements, you have your silver wings or lead sled. And so we go to free fall school, which is an advanced insert school, and we're still basic parachutists. And then Phil Thome had to come up behind me. He ended up becoming friends with another guy, Bobby Sutcliffe. And then those two did all their schools together. But when it came to the whole free fall thing, so when I get to the platoon, I get put into team 1. There's 4 teams. You have your headquarters element. You have your team 1, which is historically is your free fall team. You have team 2, which is your dive team. And then you have team 3, which is your amphib boat team, your vehicle team, your low-level static line insert team. And, at this time, I'm freaking 200 pounds. And Phil Thome is 130 pounds soaking wet. Well, we're jumping what's called MC5 static lines, which is a square parachute, steerable, right? But when everybody jumps out, they want you all to pretty much fall at the same rate. So the little guys have to come up in weight and the big dudes have to, basically offload some of their weight. So when we're doing these missions, I'm jumping maybe 50 pounds of combat equipment, and Phil is standing there at 130 pounds with probably 140 pounds. He's got 50 pounds of parachute, 30 pounds of deuce gear, 782 gear, freaking chest rig, whatever, whatever we were using at the time. And then his ruck was probably 90 to 100 plus pounds. And he's small, right? 5'8", 130 freaking pounds. And as a free faller, when you're up at altitude, you're always just kind of like kicking back, relaxing. I remember one time Phil stands up, he's jumping MC5 static line, and he hooks up and he's got all this shit on and he is just sweating freaking bullets. And he looks at me with death in his fucking eyes. He's just like, you motherfucker, you stole my jump school quota freaking 2 years ago. And now I'm freaking, this is supposed to be you right now. And then, for whatever reason, it's a no drop. So now he's got to stand there even longer. And Phil is my brother to this day. Like, he lives in Virginia. But we link up once a year, whether it's him and I linking up or our families, we all get together and then we do platoon reunions and all this stuff. But me basically hanging out at the pool was kind of the catalyst to kind of kick off my school phase that I wasn't even supposed to be a part of. And I very well could have, stayed in that mailroom for another 5 or 6 months or, whatever. And then that totally would have changed the whole trajectory of my career. Matter of fact, when I finished that platoon, we were coming back off deployment, and the wife and I have been married for like 6 or 7 years now. We've never had a honeymoon. So I get back off deployment, or every ship returning on a Westpac always stops in Hawaii, and you do your refit, and then they do the 5 to 6 day voyage back to San Diego. Well, I got permission, and the wife met me in Hawaii, and now we had this honeymoon that we never had. September 11th, 2001, the wife and I are scheduled to fly back to California. And we're staying with a brother of mine that I went to basic recon school with, who he works as a civilian. He works for Marine Forces Pacific. And it's early morning, and he bangs on the door and opens it up, and he's like, I don't know exactly what's going on right now, but I guarantee you, you're not flying home today. I'm going into work, turn on the news. And her and I both get up, and we go into his living room, turn on the news just in time to watch the second plane hit the tower. And like most America, we're glued to the TV all that day. He comes back home that night, and he's like, literally, don't ask me anything. Okay. And so we end up staying with him. Well, a lot of people don't realize is back, 90s and 2000s, you didn't buy your plane tickets. You reserved them. You went to the airport, you paid for them, you got on your plane. That was it. There was no price line or, anything like that. So my platoon sergeant I'm keeping in contact with him, and he's like, hey man, we're probably getting recalled. You need to freaking get home. And I was like, Breezer, our tickets were $300. They're now $3,000 a piece. Like, where am I going to get that freaking, how am I going to make that work? And he's just like, I don't give a fuck how you do it. Just get it done. So, my brother that we're living with, Pep, basically, we're like on day 4 or 5 now. he calls me from work and he's like, you and Halima, get ready. You need to be at Kaneohe Bay, K-Bay freaking flight line ASAP. Get over there right now. We're like, roger that. Homie of his comes and picks us up. Rick Rohn comes and picks us up, takes us to the K-Bay air terminal, and we come walking in, and the entire terminal is falling all over themselves to accommodate us, right? And both of us are like, what the hell is going on, right? Like, why is everybody being so nice to us? This is really freaking weird. Well, Pep works directly for the MAR-4 pack general, 3-star general. And at the time, it was General Labudi. Pep mentions to the general that he's got 2 active duty Marines living with him because they've been stranded since 9/11 happened. And, airline tickets are through the roof and, so on and so forth. And General Labudi goes, let them take my private jet. So General Labudi had like a 20 passenger Lear jet or whatever, whatever you want to call it. The pilots were both, I think they were both full bird colonels, right? Basically the 2 Marines that ran the back, the flight attendants, both of them were sergeants. And so we're going to fly this private jet from K-Bay to North Island, California. While we're sitting there, the terminal people come up to us and they're like, hey, because this is literally the first aircraft leaving Oahu. We're going to call up to the Air Force Base to see if there's anybody over there that needs to go to California. So a couple hours later, this freaking Navy guy shows up with his wife and they have a toddler, right? So now it's like the 5 of us on this 20 passenger Learjet. Okay. Take off, go to altitude, and about an hour into the flight, this guy's wife gets up and she starts walking to the back of the plane. And all of a sudden she grabs the headrest in front of us and gives my wife the dirtiest freaking look ever, right? And all of a sudden my wife looks at me and she's like, what the fuck is wrong with this bitch, as she continues to walk. And I'm like, baby, just relax, And all of a sudden I hear, ma'am, are you okay, ma'am? And I get up and I spin around and she's in full grand mal seizure on the freaking floor. And so I jump up, grab her, pull her away from the seats, and trying to get her over on her side. And her husband comes up and just starts freaking out, right? So now I'm like, trying to tend to her, trying to like knock it off, right? Talk to her, tell her it's going to be okay. Just let her know she's going to be fine. So he's, starts talking to her a little bit and she finally comes out of it. Now, as a Force Recon guy, I always kind of pushed the hair standards, right? Low reg was kind of my jam. A full 3 inches up top was the norm, right? My hair is way shorter today, being retired for 12 years, than it ever was when, I was a Recon Marine. And so, I got off in Hawaii to meet my wife. I probably hadn't had a haircut already in 2 to 3 weeks. Then we spent almost 2 weeks on Hawaii. I never got a haircut. Then 9/11 happens and, we were there for another 3 to 5 days. I can't remember exactly. So it's been well over a month since I've gotten a haircut. And finally, this spouse comes out of it, and we get her back up, get her to her seat. And I walk back and I sit down, and one of the pilots, again, I believe he was a full bird, comes up and he looks at me and he's like, "Hey, Doc, I have a med bag up front. Do you need it?" And I was just like, "No, just make sure EMS is on North Island when we get there and have her checked out, especially if she's never had seizures before." He's like, "No problem," right? Walks away. So I'm sitting there and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. You know, I responded to a crisis. Everything is good to go. All of a sudden, my wife leans in and she's like, "I told you you needed a haircut. He thought you were a corpsman." Fuck, baby, can I get a break? You know? But that's her. She's always been like freaking Marines gave her the opportunity to get out of, you know, not the best of situations. So she thoroughly embraced the Marine Corps, way more Marine than I ever was. To the point where one day the homies and I are at First Force, and we're like, "Hey, they just opened a Taco Bell on Pulgas. Let's go down to the Taco Bell," right? And again, you know, I never really rolled my sleeves up properly. I never wore a skivvy shirt ever, right? And so we get to this Taco Bell and we come walking in, and, you know, I got my fucking dual cool on, no skivvy shirt, friggin', you know, rolls don't go over my elbows, and not even thinking about it, I take my sunglasses and I put them on top of my head. And I'm standing there looking at the menu, and the Marine in front of me turns around and goes, "Hey, Marine, you want to take your sunglasses off your head?" And I look, and it's a first sergeant, don't know him. And before I could even like control myself, I was just like, "I'm sorry, first sergeant, where in the freaking uniform manual does it say I can't put my sunglasses on top of my head?" Wrong fucking answer, right? So I get my ass chewed, and, you know, whatever. Still got my Taco Bell. And I'm driving home, or I'm driving back to Flores, and the guys and I are sort of laughing about it. And my phone rings, and I answer it, and it's my wife. And she's like, "Were you just on Pocus?" I was like, "Yeah." "Were you just at the Taco Bell?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Did you just have a run-in with a first sergeant?" I'm like, "Oh, man, maybe." She's like, "You motherfucker, that's my first sergeant. He came back fucking bitching about some fucking recon cowboy, blah, blah, that, and I fucking knew it was you." I was like, yeah, it was me. Sorry. Now it's 2003, and it looks like we're going to Iraq. So I end up doing a company deployment with First Force Recon Company, and we go to Camp Commando Kuwait, and there's a very specific mission that required a free fall asset to jump into this named area of interest. And so I'm part of 5th Platoon, and I'm a free fall jump master. So they pull me over into Team 1, the free fall team, to basically plus them up as a jump master. And so we're working up for this mission, and that mission ends up falling through. General Conway, who later became the commandant, was the MEF commander as a 3-star at that time. And he actually personally came to us and explained why that free fall mission went away. But he was like, I have another mission, and I use this sometimes when I'm doing guest speaking stuff or whatever. And he's like, I'm going to insert your platoon onto the highest terrain feature in southern Iraq called Saffan Hill. Highest terrain feature. Saffan Hill sits like 490 feet above ground level on, it's like, but at the time they supposedly had a Republican Guard post up there, and they had some border whatever type stuff up there. And General Conway said something to the effect of, I've got satellites, sensors, I've got all this stuff, but I don't have anything until I have a Marine on the ground telling me what they're seeing. And those Marines on the ground are going to be you guys. So we start training for this, right? And we had a couple different courses of action for this. We had a land CH-46s, working with a bunch of great freaking weapons and tactics trained guys. And we're also had a plan to fast rope. And so in 2003, I'd never done it before, but we were fast roping on MVGs. And it was not the easiest thing. I got a big divot in my shin from where I caught the hellhole on the way out because, trying to see between the MVG and underneath it. So we do a lot of training, and then we move from Camp Commando to a little place called, I just had the name, Joe Foss. So we left Camp Commando and went to Joe Foss Air Base, which again was just another little hastily set up area. And we're continuing the training, prepping. We know it's getting ready to go at any time, right? And we're sitting out there, and all of a sudden we just hear a bunch of stuff flying overhead. And all of us are kind of like, what the hell was that? Like jets? What was it? And our platoon sergeant comes up and he's like, you guys hear that? I'm like, yeah. Like, they just launched a whole bunch of Tomahawks. Apparently they found Saddam or his sons or whatever the situation was at a coffee shop, and they launched a volley of Tomahawks at it. So let's see what happens. So we're sitting there, and then all of a sudden we hear something come back the other direction, right? And again, our platoon sergeant comes up, and they're like, hey, Iraq just launched a seersucker, which is it's a shore-to-ship missile, but they have modified to be basically a land-based missile. And it just landed outside of Camp Commando, which is where we were from, which is where my wife was stationed at. And so basically I was just like, hey, can I make a phone call? It's like, luckily when the wife showed up, I'd been there for a little bit, and the wife shows up, and she is checking in and runs into one of her drill instructors who she hasn't seen in 14 years at that time, right? And I guess the drill instructor immediately recognized her because, again, my wife's only 5 feet tall. There's not, and she's very distinct facial features. And, started talking, and Halima was like, yeah, I'm in country, or my husband's out here. And she's like, who's your husband with? And she's like, he's with Force Recon Company. And the drill instructor was just like, all right, good to know. I am not sending you forward. You're going to freaking stay here, right? Which, of course, caused another rift between the wife and I because, we were talking about it earlier. She joined the Marine Corps to freaking be a Marine, whatever that entails. And now I basically interrupted that again. And a seersucker missile just landed outside of Camp Commando. And get a report, all's good, no one's injured. It landed way far away. And then we basically get the call, like, let's go, boys, getting ready to do this, right? Aircraft show up, 246s, and off-walk pilots that we've never seen before. Not the pilots that we've been training with for the last week or so. And come to find out, it was the CO and the XO with the OPSO that basically pulled rank to fly this mission. The ground war hasn't started yet. We're going to be the first Marines into Iraq. So we load up. We're ready to do the two different courses of action, the land or the fast rope, which includes, as guys are fast roping, we're unloading or we're basically rappelling down all of our mission essential gear that couldn't be fast roped. So we load up. It's whatever time in the morning, late night, early morning, and we take off and we're flying towards the border. And I'm nervous as shit, and I'm sitting at the very back and I'm looking out as we're flying over, and I'm on nods. And all of a sudden I can see a lot of the vehicles that are all staged, the Marine vehicles, right? And I noticed that they're starting to flash us with their IR flashers on the vehicles and with their MVGs. And, I went from being scared as shit to, like, all of a sudden it was like every brother down there was like, here we go, boys. Let's do it. Go get them. Let's kick this shit off. I'm tired of freaking waiting. And we were talking about a little bit before, I'd never talked to anybody that was staged. And I told that story to AJ Paschuti. And AJ was like, I was one of those Marines. We got the heads up that a section of 46s were coming overhead, and they were going to push into country and, basically start the ground war. So that was like super motivating, right? And all of a sudden it's just like push. So we're now in bad guy country. And we got a section of Cobras flying with us, and we have a Huey. That's basically the command and control bird. So we're headed to Saffan Hill. Before we get to Saffan, the plan was they dropped 19,000 1,000-pound JDAMs onto Saffan. And then a section of F-18s, 2 fighter jets, flew over and each dropped a 2,000-pound bomb. And then right before we went to it, the Cobras pushed forward and dumped a whole bunch of flechette rounds. And if people don't know what flechette rounds are, they shoot out of the multiple rocket pods that are on helicopters, and they look like they are little metal nails with basically metal fins on them, and they're just designed to create hate and discontent to whoever's in the way. And there's thousands of these things, right? So the pilots swing in and we're getting ready. Like, we don't know if we're going to land. We're still waiting to get the word, right? And then all of a sudden, the lead aircraft, we freaking pull off hard and like throws me back into the seat. And then they were like, no drop, no drop, no drop. We're like, okay, let's get ready to fast rope. And then all of a sudden it was like, we're going back. What do you mean we're going back? Like, we're not inserting, we're going back. Like, holy fuck. So now, we're doing this like the flight of shame. It was like a walk of shame. We're flying back. And it's just like, what the fuck happened? Get back to Joe Foss, land. And not really a debrief, but basically what happened was the pilots flew in because so much ordnance had been dropped and it's all freaking silt and sand out there. They browned themselves out, and there's a massive freaking radio tower on top of Saffan. And one of the birds almost ran into the tower. So pilots get spooked, wave off, and we do the flight of shame back to Joe Foss. So now we're like, okay, what's up? What are we doing now? Like, did we just miss the war or what's up? And they're like, we're going to wait for BMNT before morning nautical twilight. And we're going to insert again. So again, load back up. It's now getting light outside, and we go insert and land. Go running off the birds. Textbook how we freaking planned it. The homie Mo Pau freaking ripped into what we thought was like a bunker or something with a saw. It turned out to be nothing. And then, all the team leaders came up, like, sector clear, sector clear, sector clear. And our platoon commander gave the brevity for all clear. And we literally had a front row seat to the Iraq ground war starting. All the breaches at the border blew. Artillery started freaking getting launched overhead. And we had a front row seat to all that. So that was pretty cool. We ended up staying there. It was about 36 hours, I believe. And then anybody who was in Iraq for that start, then that massive dust storm blew in. And the wing was not going to fly to pick us up, right? So first the platoon commander's like, hey, we're not going to get extracted. Sit tight, maintain security. And then he hits us back up and he's like, hey, the Brits are going to fly for us. They're en route. Get ready, right? The freaking Brits show up with their Pumas helicopters, right? Shitty fucking weather, land. We all load up. We take off, right? We're cool. Well, as we're flying back, in Kuwait, there are a fuck ton of power lines out there, right? And they're in the middle of nowhere. And for whatever reason, this pilot, probably trying to show out, right, would fly underneath one power line, bank it, pull up, side slide over the top of the other one, fly back down, and then repeat that, right? And I'm sitting there and I was just like, great, now I'm going to die in a fucking British Puma, fucking like, what the fuck is going on here, right? So finally land, everything's good to go. And, get to link up with the wife, let her know that I'm fine. And And basically that was supposed to be the end of 5th Platoon for a while. We were supposed to stay on Camp Commando for weeks or whatever. And so we're on Camp Commando. It's literally been a day or two. And our XO, guy by the name of Major Jewel, calls us pulls us all in. And he's just like, hey, you know, we've been told to stay put and da 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 da, but I understand there's some other things going on and I'm not going to miss this fucking war. Load up. We're going to drive across the border. Right. So again, everybody was like, fuck yeah, loaded up, drove across the border. That, you know, a couple days ago, we just gave the brevity that everything was all clear. You know, we could see Saffan from where we were. We went through Nazareth. I can't remember whatever the very first major town was when you first get into Iraq. Go through there. Some grunts had some stuff go on there. I think Jessica Lynch we were talking about that earlier, that fourth platoon, first force had a little hand in. So we keep pushing and we're stopping at these little combat outposts along the way. And we get tasked to go to a very specific area, but this specific area that we were tasked to go to, 1st Marine Division had, and General Mattis was in charge of 1st Marine Division. So we're going through his friendly lines and we were 2 platoons strong, 5th Platoon and 2nd Platoon. And we stop at this very specific area and the 2 platoon commanders go to basically check in and check out with General Mattis. And they fucking come back, however long it was later, and my platoon commander, Steve Fiskus, was just like, change of plan, guys. We're working for General Mattis now. Like, really? Like, what the fuck happened? He's like, well, first thing Mattis said was, are you guys done being JV and do you want to get into this freaking war? And then he said, if I find out you report back to your freaking company commander, some expletives were, you know, put in there, I'll kick you out of country, right? Apparently, Mattis didn't think too highly of our company commander, which neither did most of us. And God, I hope you're out there and you freaking see this. And so basically, our platoon commander was like, Mattis just basically wants us to go out there and do hunter-killer missions. And basically a hunter-killer mission is you just go out looking for a fight and you end the fight and that's it, right? We drove all over that fucking place and never saw anything or anyone or whatever. It's just like so frustrating, you know, to be doing stuff like that. But actually kind of a cool thing, while we were sitting there in Mattis's AO and our platoon commanders were gone, I had PVS 14s, MVGs, right, which is a monocular. And they have a very particular battery holding system on that nod. And I just broke mine. I have no freaking MVGs now. Like literally while we were sitting there, I'm setting my stuff up and the battery holder breaks off. I have no MVGs. You can't freaking tape it on or anything like that. And one of the reservists that was part of First Force was also there, but they were heading back. And I knew him because he was a drill instructor when I was going through recruit training. for another platoon. And guys kept saying that he was a Marine sniper and, boot camp freaking scuttlebutt. He was a Marine sniper and he had some confirmed kills during a Desert Storm, right? And so every time you saw him, right, you're always just kind of like side-eyeing him and whatever. Byron was his name. And Byron walks up and he's like, "Did you just break your freaking MVGs?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I'm going back. I don't need them. Take them." I'm like, "Brother, thank you, So, I'm fucking operational again, right? And hunter killer missions, we're out there and boy, we want to do them both, but we do nothing. And I remember at one point, like we were out there all fucking night long chasing ghosts and headlights and just all kinds of crazy stuff. And somebody comes over the radio, sun's starting to come up. Somebody comes over the radio like, "Hey, listen, we've been at this for a long time. We're almost back to, front lines. We're almost back to where we're going to. And just everybody, just stay alert, be careful," right? As I'm cruising along, all of a sudden I watch one of the team vehicles make a hard right turn and like get ready to drive off the side of the road and out into the freaking desert. And then they catch it and pull it back on. Homeboy fell asleep like right as that was freaking happening. Like, holy crap. So we pull into Mattis's lines and Rob's got a shit. And I was always like amazed at what Marines would be resourceful with for shitters, right? Ammo crates. Yeah, I saw one person took a folding chair, right, and cut a hole in the thing. So he had a full-on throne, right? So we're sitting there and I was like, "Hey, man, where are people shitting around here?" And they're like, "Hey, across the road in that field over there." So I'm like, "All right, cool." So grab my ammo crate, freaking walking over there, got my weapon, and dig my little freaking cat hole, ammo crate, drop trowel, doing my business. And then I hear some fucking rustling behind me. And I'm like, turn around and look, 2 female Marines walking up. And, one's got to use the bathroom. The other one is security, right? And she literally sits like 30 feet from me. And so I'm kind of like, "Hey." She's like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" And then just proceeded to blow it the fuck up. And I'm like, I cannot get out of here fast enough, right? She definitely got the Saddam revenge, right? So we continued working for Mattis. We pushed all the way into Baghdad and make it to Saddam's palace, the main palace that he had in Baghdad. And it had already been repatriated. And we're sitting there, and Rob's a little bit of an explorer, right? This place looks super freaking cool. And there was this building off to the left-hand side, and it looked massive. And I was like, "Man, I want to check this out." Let a couple homies know that, "Hey, I'm going to go walk around." And I get in there, and it turns out to be a ballroom, right? This is a massive freaking ballroom, Saddam's palace. And this is the palace that has his bust on like all the corners. And it's got different corridors and whatnot. And I make it into no one's in there. There's no power in there, no nothing. And I make it into onto the dance floor area. And I'm looking around, and it's just like over the top, opulent, just like really cool. But on one end of this ballroom is just a wall, and on the other end is like this skybox, right? And I was like, oh, I got to go see what this is about. So I get up there and, double doors fucking leading into it, and Saddam's photo is hanging from the top of it. I'm like, yeah, this is Saddam's freaking personal, skybox, whatever the case is. And I get in there and, of course there's alcohol and stuff in there. But I found like all these serving glasses, shot glasses is literally what they were. So I had to repatriate a couple of those. I mean, we just got done taking over an entire palace. Why can't I take a couple freaking glasses? And so to this day, I traded a bunch of them. I broke a whole bunch of them one time by accident, and I have 2 left. And so when people come to my house, I throw those glasses out and remind them that if they get freaking herpes from Saddam Hussein, it's not my fault. And but we'll do shots out of those glasses. And just recently, the wife and I were in France, and we went to the Devil Dog Fountain, and we came back with a whole bunch of water out of the fountain. So for the friends that don't drink, or for whoever, we'll do a little Devil Dog water in there as well. So it's pretty cool. So Baghdad was super cool. We basically ran around. We stopped a lot of bank robberies. We stopped a lot of, we came across a couple times where people were stealing gas, which in and of itself was not a problem for us, but there was always a couple people that were trying to like strong arm everybody else, to capitalize off of the gas type thing. Stopped a lot of that. But now we're in downtown Baghdad, and we're staying in downtown Baghdad in the skyscrapers, the high rises out there, and we're with a grunt unit, and we're running ops the whole time, in and out. And one day we stop a bank robbery, and that night we go back just to check it out, right? And basically what the Iraqis were doing is RPGs. They'd launch an RPG at the front door, blow the door up, get inside, launch an RPG at the cage, right? Get inside, and then just keep doing those volleys until they made it into the vault. And they weren't RPG in vaults, but they were, making entries. And so we decided to go back. We stopped one, went back that night, and sure shit, there was people in there, and they were armed. And dude pokes his head out and screams Americans. And as soon as that freaking, he's armed and everything. As soon as that happens, one of the homies, he comes out, he's armed, he's scanning everything, and then he basically catches the outline of a Humvee or something and screams Americans. And I can't remember if he shot, but he ended up getting lit up. And when we finally made it to him, like looking at him, he was gone. He had a headshot. He was leaking brain matter and so on and so forth. But every time his body went to shut off, it would kick in just enough. He would take this horrific breath of air, right, which scared the shit out of half of us. And he just kept doing that, wouldn't breathe for a long time. And then all of a sudden he would take this, life-saving breath, but you could tell that the lights were off. The body was just fighting to stay alive. So our SARC corpsman, Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsman, comes up and starts working on him immediately. And they're like, hey, we got to get him back. And we're like, well, how the fuck are we going to do that? Like, we're in gun trucks. We don't really have, anything. And one of the guys was just like, you do it just like you do a deer, strap him to the hood, right? So we friggin' tie this dude to the freaking hood. Doc is still on the hood, freaking working on him. And when we come back into friendly lines into this area that, it was basically a compound where the skyscrapers were at, the grunts at the gate were just like, what the fuck are these guys doing? One particular instance, my team leader, my team one team leader, Mike Fursky, we had a rage and freaking party at my house before we deployed. And again, I lived downtown. The JPs, the Japanese police, showed up. Luckily, a lot of the guys were dating locals and they were able to kind of like calm the situation. And Mike Fursky comes to me and he's just like, hey, my girlfriend's pregnant. And I was like, okay, what do we want to do? And he's just like, well, I want to get married so she can have benefits and whatnot. And I was like, okay. So I went to the battalion and this is like, hey, Mike Fursky's girl's pregnant. How are we going to do this? And the battalion shifted into overdrive and everybody was involved. And they found some obscure little thing called married by proxy. And so what ended up happening was Mike Fursky was in the battalion commander's office on the phone. My other team 2 team leader, David Day, was fucking standing right next to him as Mike's girl. And she was on Kadena Air Base in Okinawa where she worked. And she had one of her friends standing there as Mike, and they were married over the phone. Like, fuck yeah. Took care of Mike. 30 days to the day Mike gets killed. 30 fucking days. And that afternoon, we were sitting there and, again, we've been out for a long time. We were driving around looking for bad guys and stopped during the heat of the day and started chopping it up with Mike over, what do you think? You can have a boy, you can have a girl, what are you excited about? What do you want to do? And we had a great conversation for at least an hour. And it was about that time, load up, let's go, right? So Mike is in a Cougar, which is an MRAP. Alpha Element then had a couple Humvees. And then I was in Bravo Element as a Bravo Element leader. I was in a 7-ton, an MTVR. And it was also the log vehicle. We had all the supplies and shit in it. And then I had a handful of Humvees behind me for the teams. And on the move, and I hear Mike come over the radio. Alpha Element, buildings over to the right. Bravo Element, I see some buildings directly ahead of us. Alpha, break right. Bravo, continue straight ahead, and we'll link up on the other side. Everyone comes in, roger that. cruising along, and I've got a human exploitation team, counter intel guy in my vehicle. He's in the turret. He's gunny. And he goes, I think I hear gunshots. And, you know, I'm on a fucking Peltor, right? With dual comms. I've got internal comms and external comms. And I looked up at him and I was just getting ready to ask him, what'd you say? And I get helmet fire. Both freaking ear cups are going. And through it all, I can hear a brother of mine that I was his assistant radio operator in our very first platoon at Force. And he had gotten out and come back in, so he had broken time. And he came to our platoon as our platoon communicator. And he comes over and he's like, B, my call sign was B. He's like, B, we got ambushed. We need help. And I was just like, on my way, brother. And freaking no one had to say anything. All the vehicles turned. We came around. And as we were pulling up, I can hear people over comms like, you know, head count, where's Mike? And pull up to the crisis site. It's like an Adobe style house, L-shaped. And I'm looking around and we've got another 7-ton with us. That's a fuel vehicle. And the drivers of those were some Motor T operators, part of 3rd Recon. When shit popped off, they ended up jumping out of the vehicle and they were down behind one of the tires. And I was looking at that. I was like, fuck, I know those things are self-sealing, but I don't want to deal with a bunch of fucking diesel fuel all over the mud and fucking shit like that. So I got out and I ran over there and I was like, hey guys, get in here and get the fuck out of here. Right. And then I walked back and there's already a dude that's been eliminated fucking outside the house. And it's just going off. Right. And I come over and, you know, it's like, are we up? And I am still to this day, I remember hearing Mike saying, yeah, I'm at the vehicles. So I jump back in the 7-ton and I look at my driver, who is a Motor T freaking mechanic, Al Gonzalez, Gonzo. And I was like, Gonzo, this vehicle through that wall now. And I couldn't even finish the sentence. He was already fucking locking all the fucking axles and everything. And the battalion wanted us to have one of those fucking mine rollers. And I fucking refused because Phil from the last deployment was just like, they're worthless. Don't fucking, whatever you could do, avoid it, right? And I was able to avoid it, but we still had those fucking mounting forks on the front of it, which are big, heavy duty things. And we ended up hitting that building. And Al was just like, you know, do you want me to go all the way through or what? I was like, no, let's back out. And as we back out, we get fucking rocked. And now I can't see through the windshield anymore. I'm looking up at the gunny, the head guy. He's fine. He actually looks at me and he's like, give me a grenade, right? So I hand him one of my grenades. And, you know, this is 2008, summertime. You know, dudes are making freaking HESCO barrier freaking cupolas around their turrets, right? This fucking cat throws this freaking grenade and freaking like scrapes his hand across the HESCO barrier wire, whatever it is, and weak arms this thing. Literally the grenade freaking lands on the freaking hood of the 7-ton and just rolls off and freaking detonates, right? And I was like, You ain't getting another one, motherfucker, you know? And so I end up jumping out of the vehicle and again, standing there just kind of assessing the situation. Then I hear Gonzo yell out, he's surrendering, right? And I takes my focus and I'm looking at the building that we just collapsed and there's a guy in the rubble and he fucking stands up and he's got an AK-47, you know, bandolier freaking thing on. He's wearing a freaking dish dash. And, you know, it was just like, hey, direct all fires away from yada, yada, yada. And I stripped this motherfucker down. Butt ass naked, run him up to me, come over the radio, and we got an interpreter, Ted. Ted named himself Ted because he learned English by watching Cheers, and he liked Ted Danson. So I called Ted. Ted also joined the coalition forces because Ted's best friend growing up was a cousin, and Ted's cousin got killed by the insurgency. So that drove Ted to go to the coalition forces to be an interpreter. I call Ted. Ted's probably 50 yards away. He fucking jumps out of this vehicle and sprints. We're still taking fire from the building. We're still returning fire. And all of a sudden I hear the gunner who is in Ted's vehicle, who's also our special equipment NCO. He goes, "God damn it, Ted. I told you if you ever let this door open and I got shot in the legs, I'd fuck you up myself," or, you know, however you fucking put it. Ted's almost to me. He slides to a fucking halt, turns around, runs back, shuts the door. I later found out that he looked up at the gunner, Jules, and was like, "Sorry, Jules," and then fucking sprints back. We're still in a firefight. Ted comes running up, and I was like, "Ted, I want to know how many people are in this house." And Ted fucking punches this dude in the fucking face. And I knew exactly what was going on. This was Ted, you know, getting one in for his best friend, for his cousin. And Ted snatches him up, fucking smacks him a couple times. And I was like, "Ted, how many people?" And Ted's an Iraqi. And he looks at him and he screams in perfect English, "How many people are inside this building?" I was like, "Ted, you motherfucker, I could have done that." And he looks at me, he's like, "Sorry, Gunny." And then starts, you know, doing, but he was just so in the freaking moment, right? Mike's not up. And it's pretty clear now. So we put a team together. We go assault the house. A fucking grenade comes flying out, detonates, blows one of my team leaders off his fucking feet. The overpressure from the grenade fucking shreds his fucking frog suit. Not a fucking scratch on him. Figure out where Mike made entry. Again, you know, the freaking roof is pretty much collapsed from hitting it with the vehicle. And I start running the long wall and I find Mike and call it out, and guys start coming up. My fucking platoon commander comes fucking flying over the top of me into the fucking house, starts tearing out all the rubble and whatnot. And, you know, Mike's not responding, and it's pretty obvious. And the guys finally get him uncovered, and they pull him out. There was 4 guys, 1 on each limb, and Mike's head was kind of rocked back. So I immediately reached down and fucking grabbed him by the back of the head to support his head. And that's when I actually really knew. And I remember looking into Mike's eyes, and Mike had blue eyes, but I had never seen eyes like the color at that moment was deep. To me, medical training, there's nothing more important than medical training. And in recon, you have some of the best corpsmen there are. SARCs, Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsmen, and Luby was our SARC. And I always told Luby, and I learned this from all the corpsmen, the Barry Bruingers, the Cordell Prevos, the Mike Tyrells, all amazing corpsmen, that if I ever hear somebody say corpsman up, you have failed this platoon. The only time I need you is fucking after that golden hour. I need all these guys to be freaking savvy, TCCC, whatever. And Luby really freaking leaned into that and almost had a little bit of a fucking fist fight over who got to treat Mike. And as that's going on, I'm kind of looking around and I'm realizing that, security's freaking lacking. We're still in a fucking gunfight. And so I'm trying to get everybody's head back in the game, and I start freaking clearing, and we got a danger area coming up. And now in the recon community, when you have a danger area, the unknown, where Jason could live, as a reference to the horror Jason Lives type stuff, you call for support, and you never take your eyes off of that danger area. So as I'm clearing around, I have a danger area. So I start screaming support. And then the way it works is an individual, a recondo who's not gainfully employed, hears that call for support, starts looking for you, sees who's calling for support, identifies the situation, and then can make additional calls, or can come up to that person calling for support and give what we call a bump in a with you, right? The bump is a bump in the butt. Just be like, hey, brother, I'm right here. And the with you is a verbal, loud command that says, no matter what fucking happens, I'm with you. And I'm standing on this danger area calling for support, and all of a sudden I get a bump in a with you. And it's from the most familiar voice that I've experienced in the last 5-6 months that we'd been in country. And it was fucking my driver, Gonzo. The Motor T fucking mechanic. Gave me that bump in a with you, and we popped that corner, and there was 2 cats there. And one of them fucking looked at us and basically produced a hand grenade, and Gonzo and I are still here. We continued on, and at one point we had a gun truck come up behind us and clearing the rest of the freaking house, and a fire had started somehow, and there was somebody under the rubble and burning. And the gunner was just like, hey, what are we going to do? I was like, nothing. I mean, what are we supposed to do in this situation? We're still freaking fighting. And Eventually those noises stop. When we hit that house and backed out and we get rocked, can't see out of the windshield anymore. The vehicle, it was a vehicle kill. Vehicle didn't work anymore, which is the reason why I had to jump out. I said that the building was an L-shaped building, and we were really focusing right here. When we hit that building and started backing out, a dude wearing a suicide vest ran out of the side building, got up onto our vehicle, and one of our turret, one of the guys in the turret with the 50 cal swung that gun around and was getting ready to go to bear, but I don't want to throw freaking 50 cal armor piercing up against our own vehicle. We just don't really know what's going to happen. And thank God Oshkosh makes it so difficult to get into those vehicles, because both guys that were there said that homeboy was holding on to the freaking grab handles and he was pulling on them, trying to get the door to open. And one guy who had a saw fucking brought that up and brought it to that dude. And when that guy realized that he wasn't going to make entry, he was wearing a suicide vest and he detonated himself. And it was his vest was filled with, ball bearings and shit. And it went through the air storage container to keep the brakes open, and immediately bled off all the air pressure and locked the brakes up, which is the reason why we couldn't move anymore. So, now we know we're dealing with S-vests, suicide vests. And we've got Mike Fursky's down. Another guy took a round through his leg, who was part of that initial entry team. And another dude, when they were retrograding back to the vehicles, an enemy grenade came out and detonated, and it basically blew his heel off. So get everybody together. Everybody's checked in. I go over to the headquarters vehicle because my vehicle's down, and my platoon radio operator, Big Head Fred, who, I was in the community with 10 years prior to this, hands me a mic, and he was like, I rolled to the air freak and called for any station, troops in contact. Here's a section of F-18s. Just so happened a section of F-18s were flying over doing Starlight, where they map stuff and whatnot, and check in with them. And Big Head rolls to the company freak, and it was just like, hey, Alpha Company, troops in contact, yada, yada, yada. So I'm given a 9-line, and as a Force Recon operator, we do extensive call for fire, close air support, medevac, naval gunfire. We do all that freaking training. So giving them a 9-line, giving them amplifying remarks, and the pilot comes back and says, the DASC wants to do a show of force. And now I'm pissed. But I got to realize that the person in the DASC is only going off of the information, right? Troops in contact from a house. They're probably thinking, women and children or, you know, whatever. There's not enough time to paint a picture for what's really, you know, going on. So I'm like, no, there's no fucking way. And to add insult to injury, the watch commander that had just left was a really good friend of my wife's, and she knew I was out there, and we never would have had this freaking issue if she was the one that was still on watch, but she had just switched over. So this new watch commander was just like, show of force, I'm sending a section of freaking Cobras to you right now, right? They get there however long, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was. And they literally fly over and drop fucking chaff. That was their show of force, right? And so, all right, met that requirement. You know, let's freaking spin this 9 line up. And everything's getting ready to go. Freaking -1 is coming in. And then all of a sudden they come over and they're like, hey, DAS wants to know if you're a fucking TAC-P and tactical air controller, which is a relatively new thing at the time that they were implementing. And I was just like, you know, I wasn't. So I was just like, you know, self-lays. And that's what they ended up doing. And they dropped a 25-pound low hazard bomb, 25 pounds. And that's pretty much what freaking ended the whole thing. The dude who detonated himself, we found his head and his right arm, like right behind the 7-ton. And then one of his legs, the guys found like 100 yards, like over the freaking house, you know, a ways away. The dude we captured, we had an embedded het guy, counter intel guy with us, and we had a terp, and they were up with him all night. And after the engagement was done, you know, we had to go down and do a battle damage assessment, and there's still freaking dudes alive, and there's still a little bit of fighting going on. And it was just like, fucking pull off. Fuck these guys, right? And I get on the radio with the air because they're going to stay on station as long as they can. And then they come over and they're like, hey, we're basically out of fuel. We have to head back. We called a section of Harriers, and they're coming in because you're not going to be alone tonight. And you want to talk about a comforting feeling. I mean, we're in the middle of fucking nowhere. There's no one that's going to be able to freaking, you know, walk up on us, drive out. There was nothing like that was going to happen. But just knowing that the Marine team was out there was good. And I sat in that vehicle and fucking cried for Mike, but more for, you know, he ended up having a son, and, you know, for his son that he never met, and for his wife that'll never see him again. And the only thing I can ever say about that is, you know, you never want to lose anybody. You don't want to be responsible for that. But we didn't lose Mike to stupidity, complacency, or a lack of training. You know, we lost Mike to the circumstances of the fight. There was 9 fucking cats in there that knew we were coming and were armed to the teeth. And So when Mike made entry, uh, they opened up on him. I can't remember exact numbers, but um, I think it was 12. We killed 12 and captured one. It might have been 10 and 1. I can't remember now. But we had to stay on site for 2 or 3 days. And they sent the fucking CSI team, a bunch of older, fat civilian guys. And watching them operate was sort of cool because, they're freaking inflating fingers and eyeballs to use the BAT system, which was basically a retinal scanner to see if these guys had been in the system, before, and inflating the fingertips to get good prints, and then to take fresh blood samples. They were actually cutting these guys down into their aorta and freaking getting the blood right out of the heart. And but yeah, I can't remember exactly. I can't remember the exact count, but recovered tons of weapons, tons of suicide vests, med gear, propaganda stuff. Turns out they were all a Yemenis insurgency group that was there to do basically get people to wear suicide vests and create hate and discontent. So I'm in therapy and I'm doing all these experimental things, but I'm refusing meds because meds, I don't want the artificial. Just tell me what's wrong with me. Let me fix myself. And finally, the therapist that I've been seeing for a while now, and one of my big issues was my relationship with my kids. I was absolutely destroying the relationship with my kids. And one day, just out of the blue, she's like, listen, I know how you feel about meds, but if you're not going to do them for yourself, do them for your kids. I think they will help. Right. Well, unfortunately, the whole med journey within the fucking military is stupid as fuck anyways, because, I sat down with this dude, Dr. Nard or something was his name. And he's just like, well, this is the freaking pill I really want to give you, but I can't give you this. I have to start with this. And then you're going to come in and tell me that this doesn't work. And then I have to give you this next classification. Then you're going to tell me that this doesn't work. And then I can give you this. Well, that whole process is fucking 4 weeks. And I'm still only sleeping 2 hours a night. Right. And I'm on this one fucked up med, not the one that he wanted to put me on. And I remember I woke up in the middle of the night, like always, I'm staring off into the freaking darkness. And I'm just like, I'm over it. I'm a burden to my wife. I'm a burden to my fucking kids. I'm barely holding on to my fucking job. Just everybody would be so much better off without me. And I was going to kill myself. And when I was kind of going through the thought process of, okay, I'm not going to do it in the house. I don't want my kids to find me. I need to go someplace. I'm kind of just like shuffling around in the dark. And the wife comes up to me and is basically like, hey, what's up? And that's kind of what snapped me out of it. And then I went to the fucking Dr. Nard and I was just like, hey, I'm suicidal on this fucking stuff. And he laughs and he goes, oh, huh, that's not supposed to happen. I'm like, all right. So apparently I'm the fucking, that fast talking, if you have any of these symptoms, immediately stop taking, whatever. So I'm that fucking guy, right? Long story short, fucking meds weren't for me. And finally got a therapist that on base with the deployment health that helped me out. And then we linked up with a couple other Marines, and we started the nonprofit Warfighter Made, and we did that in 2012, and I retired in 2014, and I work full time at Warfighter Made. I don't have any other jobs, and I'm a full time volunteer. Being in Temecula, California, right outside Camp Pendleton, I'm still pretty tied into everything. There's a lot of Recondos that live in Temecula, and a good buddy of mine who's also a Silver Star recipient started a group thread with all of us in it called T-Town Recondos, and actually somebody reached out to me, a SEAL buddy of mine reached out to me and said, hey, there's a retired Green Beret that's on a rodeo circuit. He was in Palm Springs doing a rodeo thing, got severely injured, concussion, blah, blah, blah. It's just him and his dog. Family can't get out there, blah, blah, blah. Can you assist? And literally within 30 minutes, I went to T-Town Recondos and just said, hey, here's a sit rep. And they had an active duty freaking lieutenant from Pendleton that was like, I'm en route. I'll be there. So still really tied into the community. We have great organizations like the Marine Recon Foundation and the Force Recon Association that have meetings and or get-togethers and stuff like that. Recently became aware that there's a bunch of Force Recon Vietnam vets that link up for breakfast in Oceanside on a regular basis. And I see a lot of the guys on the East Coast, they're all doing the same thing. So that's really the great thing about the recon community is everybody, you still stay, if you were in the community, you're still in the community. So I really enjoy that. I just had a really great time for the 250th Marine Corps birthday celebration in Texas with the Marine Recon Foundation, and a brother of mine that I served with for a lot of years hosted us, and my old platoon commander that floated with us as a major is now a 4-star general, and he was the guest of honor at this thing. So he just got put in charge of Southcom.
Just tell me a little bit about what you guys do at Warfighter.
Yeah, so Warfighter Made, it's really about working on the mental health of the service member, but also the service member's family, because we know that the families go through just as much, if not more, than the service member does. So we originally started Warfighter Made by adapting and customizing vehicles for catastrophically wounded warfighters, and we do all that free of charge. And it's basically one of our tag phrases is adapted to the injury, customized to the soul, right? So we've built everything from 2-wheel motorcycles we built a 2-wheel Harley for a double leg amputee who we gave it to him on a Saturday, and the very next Tuesday he rode it from Temecula, California to Colorado, right? I told you Davey Lind, the guy that I went to basic recon school with, he became a double leg amputee, and he was an avid sport bike rider. And after his injury, he didn't ride anymore. And then he bought a Can-Am Spider, the 3-wheel motorcycle, but he was having some issues with it, and he parked it, wasn't going to ride it anymore, called him up. It was like, bro, let us do some stuff. So we completely took that and adapted it to his injuries and made it really useful to him. We built a Jeep for a triple amputee, and one of the very first things we did on that was put a supercharger on the Jeep from Magnuson. And when you're talking to people and you're trying to get support and donations and stuff for us, you're like, well, yeah, combat wounded, triple amputee, Marine, Afghanistan. Yeah, we're going to put a supercharger. And people will literally look at you and be like, he's a triple amputee and you're going to put a supercharger on his vehicle. Do you think that's really smart? Like, the motherfucker sacrificed 3 fucking limbs for you to have the freedom to question whether I should do it or not. I'm going to fucking do it and let him fucking sort it out in the end. And then I was telling you, Butch Vasquez, my first freaking cadre, the one that I failed, out of nowhere, he donated a couple grand to us, and we were able to send the triple amputee in his Jeep to Easter Jeep Safari in Moab, Utah. And he's out there wheeling the shit out of that thing in all these obstacles in Moab, to the point where I'm like, okay, I know he just sent this to me and I know everything's fine, but God, it's hard for me to watch, you know? And, you know, built a Harley with a sidecar for a triple amputee, lots of off-road vehicles. That's kind of our forte now. Is Polaris Razor is one of our big sponsors, and they give us machines. We completely adapt them and customize them to the recipient and introduce them to off-road. And you know, then now it gives that vet and their family something to do. Then that segues into, we do what's called recreational family retreats. We invite vets and their families to come out. We have a place out in Nocatee, California, which is a big desert off-road park. A vet who served in the Air Force in the late 70s, early 80s, has a bunch of property out there, and he built a working ghost town, saloon, jail, store, bank, church. He's currently finishing up his hotel. But we live out of that thing. We show up on a Friday evening, and it's just great. It's vets meeting vets, spouses meeting spouses, kids meeting kids. We used to have some things that we were going to do that needed to be accomplished on Friday, but everybody was just having so much fun meeting everybody that we're like, hey, let's just push this off until, you know, Saturday. We'll fit it in someplace else. And then Saturday, what we do is we go and we rent a bunch of Polaris razors, and each family gets their own razor. And then we take them out and do guided tours within Akatia and kind of all the cool things. And, you know, it's all vets that volunteer at Warfighter Made that do the guided tours. And we have a veteran catering company, Limitless Catering, Marine Vet. They provide us with all the catering and stuff like that. So really all it costs the vet is to get out there, you know. And then we started a program for the kids of vets called BOLT, Building Off-Road Leaders of Tomorrow. Teach kids all about, really what it's teaching kids is it's about the environment. You know, stay on trails, and, you know, pack out what you bring in. But we also teach them how to drive razors for kids and
Off-road etiquette.
Basic maintenance, you know, tire pressure, look for oil, leaking fluids, how to plan a ride, you know, ride your plan. And then we do a lot of what's called camaraderie therapy. We have a 4,000 square foot facility in Temecula, and this is where we adapt and customize the vehicles for catastrophically wounded warfighters. And it's where we maintain, I like to say that we're low-key famous in the off-road world, because we take vintage military vehicles and we convert them into off-road vehicles. And then we bring vets in from all over the nation, and we actually put those vets behind the wheel. And like March, the first weekend of March is the Great American Off-Road Race called the Mint 400. And I've got 3 Marine females coming in. One of them is the only female to ever claim the title Recon Marine. she's coming. She's racing a dirt bike for us, and she's going to be on a team with a double leg amputee and a single leg amputee, both Marines. We have Beefy, our Humvee, an M998 original Humvee. That's still, the powertrain is all freaking stock, makes like 160 horsepower. But we have a long travel kit that was given to us by Chad Hall, Rod Hall Racing Products. And, this thing isn't fast, but it freaking can absorb some bumps and jumps and stuff. And then we have a vintage light strike vehicle, Flyer Defense, that we're the 6-time defending military class champs in this thing, which is a Mint 400 record for having the same vehicle win 6 times in a row. And then we also have a Cheneth light strike vehicle, the three-seat dune buggy, driver, co-driver, and then the gunner sits in the cupola above those two, which is kind of cool because it's one of the original First Force vehicles, and there is a 2 in 8 chance that the one that's sitting in Warfighter Made shop is one that I deployed with in the 90s at Force Recon. So we race that one down in Baja, and so the camaraderie therapy is where we maintain our therapy machines. It's where we build and maintain and prep our race machines. And it's where guys can come, all branches, all eras, and kind of hang out and feel a part of wherever you came from, a team, a squad, a platoon, a section, whatever, and kind of feel a part of something again. Even if you can't tell the difference between a screwdriver and a wrench, we have guys there that are like that, but they like to come and just re-experience the camaraderie, right? So, and then a lot of it's, crisis response. Personally, I've talked 14 vets and 3 spouses out of killing themselves. And this isn't just like, hey, I know, this is fucking, I got PTSD from the fucking answering the phone. Cause I pretty much early on, fucking my phone would ring, number I don't know, answer it, and somebody would be on the other end screaming at me, telling me why I shouldn't fucking kill myself right now. And it's actually really easy for me to do because I was there, and it's like, well, first, because I'm proof it gets better. You fucking do it right now. You're going out on a low point. I know you remember how it was to be happy. Let me get you back to that fucking feeling. And once you're back at that feeling of being happy again and everything is going right, if you want to kill yourself dead, by all means. But why the fuck would you? Right? So on social media, me personally, you can find me at warfighter_actual. I do a lot of mentoring for kids that want to join the military, specifically if they want to join the Marine Corps or the recon community, or if they just have general questions or whatever the case may be. And then you can find Warfighter Made on Facebook and IG at Warfighter Made, and then warfightermade.org on the World Wide Web. And then we're Monday through Friday, we're open. Our hours are 10 to 4 because we're all volunteer. But I usually get there at 9, and depending on what we have going on, I'm rarely out of there 5:36. But sometimes, we'll leave at 1 if there's not a whole lot of stuff going on or we got other things to do, or I'm doing a friggin' podcast or, whatever the case may be. My right-hand man at Warfighter Made is Danny Navoa, combat wounded Marine, 1-4, Purple Heart recipient. Now he's a freaking fabricator, and he's been with me since 2014, and full-time volunteer. And yeah,
We're gonna wrap it up, man. Any last words before we cut the tape?
No, just appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. It's been an honor to sit with you, man.